All right, so just looks like we're waiting on a couple folks to be able to join. So I'm going to give it probably about 30 more seconds and then we will kick the meeting off. So hang tight. Okay, it's officially 12:02. So we're going to go ahead and kick off the meeting just by means of introduction. My name is Angela Foose. I'm the Assistant Director here for Development Services. And also joining us is Lauren.
And I'm Lauren Knox. I'm a senior planner here with Development Services as well.
Great. So we are doing 3 presentations this week, and they're all the same presentation. And the topic is signs, and specifically signs in the downtown area. So we're going to kind of give a high overview of signs in general and some changes we're making to our sign code. But we really just wanted to focus on more of the downtown area. So understand that if you're like, whoa, what happened to discussion on signs citywide? Know that these particular 3 meetings are focused on signs in the downtown area. Okay. So again, to kind of kick it off, our goal here was to reach out to the downtown business owner and let them know kind of what we're doing. So we're updating our sign code. This is something in our zoning code, Title 18. And as part of that, we are looking at the downtown area. So our goal is to kind of educate you on what the rules say today, and then get your feedback on what your preference would be moving forward. Do you like the rules? Do you think we should change them? Are there other things that we could be doing differently when it comes to signs in downtown? And just to give you a little bit of background of where we're at in the process, it was about 2.5 years ago that the Reno City Council initiated this zone change tied to signs. And it was not specific to any one topic. It was more of what we're calling a cleanup when we adopted our current zoning code back in 2021. So that was, gosh, almost 4 years ago now. We'd hired a consultant and they helped us to work on the zoning code. But one thing that came out of that was they said, you guys should probably do a completely separate deep dive on your sign ordinance. So we've known since before 2021 that we needed to do a deeper dive on our sign ordinance as a whole. So council initiated that change in 2022. So we then took the next step. We hired a consultant who had a background both in legal and in land use planning. They're not local, they're from the Midwest, and they've done sign codes throughout the nation. So we hired them to help us. And we had them really just do kind of a broader picture of what's good and what's not good within our sign code. So we met with a number of just sign stakeholders. These are individuals that have used our zoning code and used our sign code, either from the sign industry or the Scenic Nevada group, to get their feedback on what's working and what's not. So we went through that process, and then we have since held a number of different stakeholder meetings to talk about some of the proposed changes. We did go to Planning Commission, again, just to get feedback, not to approve or deny anything. We're just in the feedback stage now. And some of the direction that came from Planning Commission was there's a lot of public comment coming in about our downtown. So a lot of the public comment came from the Scenic Nevada, I would say kind of membership and folks that are not happy with the way our downtown looks, with signs in particular. So Planning Commission said, well, have you actually touched base with anyone that owns a business in downtown and actually has a sign in downtown? And we said, that's great feedback. So they gave us direction to go out to the business community and seek feedback. And so that's what we're doing today. So as we mentioned earlier, initially when we did some stakeholder outreach with the sign community, and again, not looking at downtown, this was literally looking at the entire city and how our sign code is being used. We said, well, what's working and what's not? And so the good thing is that while we thought it was a bad sign ordinance, it turns out it's not so bad. So there was a couple high level things that most everyone agreed on that, yep, those things could use some updating. So one of them is we have this big table in our code that talks about every zoning district and based on your zoning dictates what kind of sign you get. And that tells you how tall your sign can be, how big your sign can be, how bright your sign can be. And the table's really, I would say, unclear. There's a lot of sections in the sign table that conflict with each other. And so one of the biggest feedbacks we got from people that use our zoning code is that you should clean up the sign table. Again, more of the inconsistencies. From a staff perspective, we asked all of our planners that use the sign code and have to interpret it. And we said, well, what works and what doesn't work? And they said, you know, a lot of it's just really confusing. And so if we could clean up some of those conflicting areas, things that make it more black and white, less room for interpretation, that would be helpful. And then bigger picture, our attorneys told us that we have to put in some language related to content neutrality. This is basically some rules that say, as a local jurisdiction, we can't regulate what you're putting on a sign. Now, the only thing we can regulate is whether you're advertising the business of the parcel that your sign's located, or if you're advertising something that's considered off-premise and not at all tied to the property. So we're adding some language really just to kind of tie up some of the legal conflicts. Okay, so a couple things just citywide, again, not specific to downtown right now, but citywide, things that we're not touching as part of our zoning code. So anything related to billboards, we're not making any changes. That's anything advertising off premise. Anything related to digital or animated signs, citywide, not touching. And then the brightness of signs, there was a lot of discussion several years ago with council on NITS, which regulates how bright your sign can be. Not touching that either. What's in code today, we're leaving, not expanding, not taking away, not touching. And then finally, gas station signs. Ironically, we we had a lot of discussion several years ago on gas station signs. They're also regulated by state law, so we're not making any changes to gas station signs. So let's go through, again, big picture, citywide. Here's some changes that are proposed for the sign code, not specific to downtown. This is just generally citywide. On the right side of your screen shows a table. That's just a snapshot of part of the table. Now, this is that sign table that we talked about. It's actually about 2 pages long, so this is just a small excerpt from it. And as you can see, everything on the left shows what district you're in. So depending on if you're in a residential zoning district or a commercial zoning district or a mixed-use zoning district, that really regulates what your sign size and square footage and height and all those things can be. So we had 3 zoning districts that are currently zoning districts in our city, but they're not in the sign code. So that was just an oversight. So we want to make sure that every single zoning district is allowed signs. So we're proposing just to clean that up. Again, nothing major there, nothing affecting downtown. This is just citywide. We also updated our definitions. We'd had some conflicts over the years of, well, what's considered freestanding and what's considered a monument? And those pictures on the bottom kind of help to illustrate. A monument side would be more of that McDonald's type sign. Freestanding would be the one on the right, that Horiba. We also call that a pole sign. So we added some definitions so that it just can be better explained what types of signs those are. And then again, the content neutrality, we added some language that says, as staff that reviews sign permits, we're not allowed to look at what is the content of your sign. We are allowed to regulate things like, is there any adult nudity or adult content? And then we're allowed to look at it and determine if it's actually being a sign is advertising the business that it's on. So for instance, if you're a McDonald's and the business is McDonald's and the business is advertising US Bank, that would be something we can regulate and say, whoa, 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 you're McDonald's. You have to have a McDonald's sign. You can't be advertising US Bank, totally separate business on a different parcel. All right, and then again, other just big picture issues that we're dealing with, footnotes. So we wanted to highlight, again, most people have never actually opened our zoning code sign section. So we wanted to highlight some of the details of what we're dealing with. So everything in yellow is a footnote in our sign table. And there's 13 footnotes now. These are very confusing and they conflict. So just as an example, I wanted to highlight number 5. So it says the allowable square footage, again, of a sign can be doubled, which is great. So let's say it tells you how big your sign can be, so you can double that in a certain situation. If you're on an arterial roadway, okay, well, who defines an arterial roadway? So Reno defines roadways. RTC, which is the Regional Transportation Commission, also defines arterial roadways, and NDOT defines arterial roadways, and they're all different. We don't have the same definition of what's considered an arterial roadway. So that in itself creates a conflict. Anytime we have a regional road or a big road such as McCarran, and you have a sign, well, whose definition of arterial are we using? So let's get rid of language like that. There's also continuing reading number 5. It says, so you can double the square footage. Okay, great. If you're on an arterial roadway, whatever that means, and if the speed limit is 35 miles per hour or greater. One of the challenges we have with that is speed limits change. And so when you have to look at the speed limit, and one day it's 35, maybe a year later it's now 45, maybe a year later it's 25, kind of creates this constant like flexibility of, well, now do I have a non-conforming sign? So what we did is we said, let's take those 13 footnotes, clean them up, make them easier for our staff to actually implement, make them easier for the sign industry to know what the rules are. And then finally, one of the big things we looked at citywide is we had all these different rules on signs that triggered some kind of additional review. So normally when you submit for a sign, you submit to our building department and you would submit a sign permit. It's all done just through staff. There's no public review process. There's several instances that require some kind of public review. There's probably 4 different reasons, major reasons that would trigger a public review. And some of those triggers would be like, oh, well, this one goes to planning commission through a conditional use permit, or this trigger goes to planning commission, but through a major site plan review, or this trigger just goes through a site plan review. So we said, whoa, 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 let's make them all consistent. So anything that would have triggered some kind of entitlement, we now call them all a major site plan review, which does require planning commission review. So it does require a public hearing. Again, there's probably about 4 different categories within our sign code that would trigger having to go through that process. Okay, so a lot of questions from the community about, wow, so you're making some changes to your sign code. What does that do to my existing business where I've had a sign for years? This does nothing. So we consider that to be an existing, either conforming or non-conforming use. And this happens a lot. So as we update our zoning code, things change, rules change. No, we don't make you take your sign down. Similar to our building code. So we update our building code every couple of years. As the codes change, we don't make you tear your house down. We don't make you tear out the insulation and put in thicker insulation. Signs are similar. If you at one time were approved, legally approved for your sign, as long as you maintain that sign, you can keep it there. So just know that, again, regardless of what changes we make in our sign code, if you have a sign that's there and was legally established because you had a sign permit, you can remain. So we're not going to make anyone tear down a sign just because the rules change. The one thing we do want to highlight is that signs do need to be kept in good condition and maintained. So we have a lot of signs over the years where businesses have kind of come and gone and signs have deteriorated and fallen apart. So we do have code enforcement that can look at a sign and say it's not in good condition. You need to bring it back into a good condition and maintain it. Okay, the other thing we're not changing, and we wanted to highlight this for anyone tied to the casino industry, is that no changes are proposed for signs tied to casinos. We call that legally established, not, what do we call them? My mind just blanked, gaming. But essentially, as long as you are a legally established casino, meaning that you're there legally, the signs you have, you can maintain. We're not proposing any changes through this code update. So not touching any signs related to casinos. Just want to highlight that. Okay, so why we are here today is looking at our downtown entertainment district. And we have a map here that highlights the boundaries. From kind of the east side to west side, Record Street is generally the boundary on the east. Ralston is generally the boundary on the west. And then that boundary on the north kind of fluctuates, but just wanted to highlight 6th Street is kind of the top end, generally speaking. On the south side, 2nd Street is that bottom end. So that is the boundary, and this is an identified zoning code boundary of what we consider to be our downtown entertainment district. So within this district, there are no limits on signs, meaning your sign can be as big as you want. It can be as bright as you want. You can animate it. You can have digital. Again, you still have to meet the NITS requirement. But a lot of our zoning districts, we do not allow digital signs. In the downtown entertainment district, we do allow digital signs. So one thing that I think has been misinformed for a lot of the community is that this has been allowed for more than 2 decades. So our downtown entertainment district has unlimited signage and has had that for more than 2 decades. Over the years, we've changed what this boundary has been called. We've also modified the boundaries. And so, I mean, it used to be called Hotel Casino. It was part of the Hotel Casino downtown. That was a zoning designation. It wasn't necessarily that you were a hotel or a casino. It was just a broader zoning designation. But through that entire time, so years and years and years, decades worth of zoning codes, our zoning code has always allowed unlimited signage within this downtown entertainment district. Key fact that you need to know moving forward. So one of the comments, many of the comments that we got came from the Scenic Nevada membership, and many were concerned that we were proposing to give the downtown entertainment district unlimited signage. That is false. They've always had it. We're not proposing to give them anything new. We're proposing to have them maintain the same signage that they've had. So understand, we're not proposing to give you anything or take anything away. We're proposing to maintain what you've had in downtown for more than 2 decades. So with that now is the question, is signage important to the downtown community? And if so, what should it look like? Do you feel that we should limit square footage? Should we limit how tall a downtown sign can be? Should we limit how many digital signs you can have on your business? So really at this point, we are just looking for feedback. This is kind of a topic that a lot of people may just want to think about, and we appreciate that and know that we're not expecting you to give us any answers today. We do hope that you can at least send us an email so we can include your public comment. And if we get to a point where the downtown businesses say, you know what, I think I'm good with the amount of signage I have. No one's really taking advantage of it at this point. You know, most of the signs in our downtown have been there quite some time. I just took some random pictures here of some of the signs that we would typically see. None of these are outlandish in terms of brightness or size or height. Again, most of our downtown businesses have been there for a while, so they haven't updated their signs in a while. But again, the question is, moving forward, if a new sign were to come in through a sign permit, what kind of rules and regulations do we want to see in our downtown? So again, just examples of what we have today, some of the newer buildings, some of the older buildings. It's a mix. And so looking for feedback from business owners in particular. You guys have the right to build new signs. What is something you're concerned about? What are some signs that maybe you want to see that you didn't know you had the ability to build? If you're like, you know what, I'm good with a small sign. I don't need something digital. I'm happy with what I have. Great. If you would like to have something animated or digital and you don't, tell us why. Is it prohibitive because of the cost? Is it something you just didn't know you had the ability to do? And so this is more informational. Great as well. So next steps then, we are going to City Council just for feedback. At this point, we're not proposing a final ordinance to make approve or deny decisions on. Right now, we're just getting public feedback. So we're going to go to council probably December-ish. We don't have a defined date yet, but likely December, maybe January, and we'll be presenting information. It's citywide, so talking about some of the bigger pictures with our sign code, but we definitely want to provide them some feedback from the community as a whole. You know, what does the community want to see in terms of our downtown, whether you live in downtown or own a business in downtown or just occasionally drive through downtown? What would you like to see as part of our downtown sign package? Lauren Knox, and again, she's here. We have her email up there, so we encourage you to send your email. We can include that information on the public record. And again, the more information we can help give to council can help to kind of guide the direction of where we want to go with updating our sign code. Okay, so that was quick and simple. I know, like I said, it's a lot to take in. And if you wanted to go back and talk to your employment and kind of figure out, is this something that they want to weigh in on? We encourage you to take that email, knoxl@reno.gov. If you're a resident or again, a community member and have feelings about signs and specifically in downtown, definitely encourage you to email Lauren as well. And then again, gives us just feedback on how we can move forward. So with that, we did want to open it up if anyone wants to just provide comments or has questions. If not, again, take some time, think about it, and then send us an email and we'll include that information. So if you do have comments or questions and want to share at this meeting, you can wave your virtual hand and then we can scoot you over into the side where you can actually talk. And I'll give it probably just a minute, so in case you wanted to figure out how to, sometimes it's hard to figure out where the virtual raised hand function is. And if not, like I said, that's okay too. And feel free to share this email with anyone that you think might be interested in. This is a community-wide topic, so we definitely didn't want to exclude anyone, but we definitely just wanted to make a point to reach out to the businesses that this impacts the most and get your feedback and opinion. Okay. Well, with that, I'm not seeing anyone raise their hand. And we can let you all go and you can finish your lunch or start your lunch. Okay. Thank you everyone for participating. And we will have 2 more meetings this week. We'll provide the same information. Have a great day.